Welcome back to Jeff Koinange live here at Citizen Television. Yes, indeed, we are starting the bench a little early. We want to see, it's a very interesting topic, especially when it comes to church and state. Right next to me, the very Reverend Canon Sammy Wainaina of the All Saints Cathedral down the road from here. And right next to him is Bishop Emeritus Jackson Koske. He's also a nominated Member of Parliament. Gentlemen, good to see you. Welcome to the bench once again.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, you watched the clips in the news earlier on. You saw the raid on former Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang's home in Karen. Canon Sammy, your thoughts?
Well, it's not just about the former CS. Listening to the news, it's very depressing that every evening we go to bed with such news. Bandit attack, homes being attacked as well. And you ask yourself, if there's something wrong that the former CS did, we are a country that is governed by the law. Just follow the due law. If it is to search his home, you can do that within the defining of the law. If it is arresting him, you can do that. But why the harassment? But across the news, you wonder, is this the best news that we should be listening to every evening? Is it that our news only focus on the negative, or our news should also focus on good things that happen in this country? I think journalism also needs to change.
Bishop Koske?
Yes, I think I agree with Canon that it's not the best way to end a day. Yeah. Kenyans have been very busy, running up and down, struggling in their lives, and you are winding up the day by giving them news that devastates them. And again, I agree with him that it is a responsibility of all of us. Those in government, as they implement the law, and those of us who are reporting, that is in the media, for example, should be able to have a mixed grill that makes Kenyan go to bed in the evening with a restful heart. Yeah. You can still give the same message. It can still come. I don't know, and I wonder whether is it because it is selling or it is attractive. It is more, evil is more attractive than good. Yeah. So from a moral point of view, because you can grade us tonight as the moral leaders, and is that we should moderate, we should temper information that we give. In Africa, for example, it was a taboo when bad news is around, you bring it to the consumers straight without minding the children, women, and elderly, that you don't bring a devastating. So when we were being trained growing up in society, they said, while you are bringing news and information, make sure you don't intimidate the recipient of that message.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good point. Good point. Okay, gentlemen, I want you to listen and watch a soundbite from yesterday's National Prayer Day at Nyayo National Stadium. The president had this to say. Let's take a listen.
I'm happy that the church has come back to the center of the politics of the Republic of Kenya.
He says, well, I'm happy that the center has come back to the center, church has come back to the center of politics in Kenya. Canon, what do you think he meant by that?
Well, in my understanding, he says there is no separation between church and state. And that's why I differ with the president right away. There is a demarcation. There is a relationship, but there is also a separation. And I think the first thing we need to redefine in this country is what is prayer? What is thanksgiving? Because even in the former government, I used to hear a lot of thanksgiving. Or when people have been elected and they are going back home, they call it a thanksgiving. But it's a political meeting. For example, look at the Nakuru rally. In 5 hours that they were there, the service was done for an hour and a half. Very good sermons are done, good prayers are done by the clergy. But the rest of 3.5 hours is about attacking one another, and what comes out of the political leadership is very disheartening. In fact, some of them, the clergy, are preaching against revenge. They wake up and say, we must revenge, or if so-and-so will be arrested, make sure I'm also arrested so that I deal with them in the prison. Then you ask, and then I see clergy seated there, and they can't correct that at the end. If I was there, I would stand and say, sorry, that is wrong. You see, if it's a church service, please attend the church service. Once the church is over, go to the nearest stadium, do your politics. When it comes to prayers and thanksgiving, those are sacred, and they can only be conducted by the clergy. And I think I'm on record saying, when it comes to podiums and pulpits, let them be left to the clergy, because the congregations that we serve are not in support of one political party. And so when you invite people to Nyayo Stadium, who will come to those prayers? They are your supporters. So what are you doing? As a president, you are not unifying the country in the name of prayer. You are actually dividing that country. When a section of the church goes to such prayer meetings, again, you're dividing the very church. If the president wanted a day of prayer, there are organizations that you would have called. One, the NCCK, the leadership, the KCCB, the Evangelical Alliance, and the others, and also the Interreligious Council, because we need to be as ecumenical and as inclusive as possible. Jeff, let me ask you, if in future we get a Muslim president and he does what our current president is doing in public, how will the Christians feel? And that's why when it comes to the law, we are all one and the same. That's why this country is not a Christian country. There are Christians who worship, but this is a secular nation. If you want prayers, which I support prayers because I mobilize people to pray, but prayers are not for political attacks and rhetoric.
Yeah, absolutely. Bishop Koske, your thoughts on what you thought the president meant?
Well, he could have meant anything, ranging from what the professor has just said, could have meant, between 2010, for example, when we had the constitutional change in this country, what came out was that there came something that looked like a campaign against the church. And after the referendum, the church appeared a minority, and all politicians were pushing the church. Some of us who were friends to the government, some bishops, we could not feel it because we were of the idea that what the church was raising was already taken care of in the constitutional arrangements at that time. The fear that they had that might be, it looks like the church is getting out of the constitution and Islam is coming in. So some of us believed, among the bishops, that I think it was taken care of. And that the constitution of Kenya is largely Christian influence. That argument didn't mean much. But on the extreme, the political class at that time appeared to bash the church. And I think that could have meant a section of the church felt it. And now what the professors just mentioned as a concern, that when you see the president make such a pronunciation, somebody will feel excluded. Perhaps there could be a moderation required on that. But it will be also unfortunate to take it out of context to the extreme, because we will be also encouraging either way it can cause division in the country. Secondly, The concept of church and state separation, which is the Middle Ages largely, and it was given more interpretation by the American Constitutional First Amendment. Actually, when Rogers Williams, for example, in Rhode Island, an English theologian, is the one who came out with a structured argument on church and state separation, he was reacting to what had just happened between 11th century to 13th century because of the Crusaders' impact, the fight between religiously led wars. And they wanted to make sure that religion will not become the cause of conflict in society. The second issue was the Magna Carta decision in 1200, when they wanted to say, let us transfer what we call moral concerns in the nation, which has been carried on by religious organization in Christian world, into parliament by establishing a secular state. This is the background of that statement, so that the state will not overindulge in religious matters, therefore interfering with the freedoms of religion. At the same time, religion will not become an excuse of conflict in society. Whereas Christianity then succeeded 500 years, 700 years later by systematically separating the church and the state and encouraging secular state. On the other hand, Islam, on the other hand, Islam is a way of life. You know, you can't separate the two. And today, Jeff, historians are beginning to relook at the same, that the Western world is losing faith, for example, in their systems, in schools, in families, and there are some complications which are rising in society in managing law and order. So you can say anything about this, and I agree entirely with the provost that while making such pronunciations for prayer, we be sensitive on the diversity in the country. So I'm sure the prayers were well intended. The second issue is about the politician. Now I can play both. That's right. Christian leaders are quarreling. They are also complaining. They say we are Christians. That when we became political leaders, we didn't stop becoming Christians. When you talk about leaders as if they have nothing to do with their faith, then you are saying leadership doesn't matter. Yeah. So there is a new argument that leadership matters because it affects your faith, it affects your resources, and it affects your family. So again, they say the argument must be sensitive while rebuking the political class.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I want to take a quick break, come back. There's plenty of ground to cover. I want to talk about prayers and politics. We want to talk about what's happening in the North. It's very sad what's happening. Banditry in the 21st century. I mean, what's going on? And also, corruption. Is it the elephant in the room? So much ground to cover, gentlemen. We've got the provost of the All Saints Cathedral right here in the house, the very Reverend Canon Sammy Wainaina, and Bishop Emeritus Jackson Koskei, also nominated Member of Parliament. Interesting conversation, folks. You want to join in? You can. Oh, by the way, your tweet that you sent yesterday. I want to talk about that too.